So yesterday I went out and watched Lego Movie, and after I watched it, I'm like, oh, that was a fun romp, but there's not very much to analyze in there. And then I thought to myself, challenge accepted. Because if it's one thing I learned from my 4 years during a lit degree, that you can apply meaning to anything. So, is Lego Movie just a fun romp? Or is it a fatalist text? Or is it an indeterminist text? And what do these things mean? And why am I thinking about this? You'll find out the answers after this. So first off, what is fatalism? If you're not familiar with the term, it's a philosophy that essentially revolves around the idea that everything we do is already predetermined, and we have no agency, we have no free will, we can't make choices because everything we are going to choose, we chose because it was a plan, and we couldn't have made another choice. A choice is an illusion. It's kind of like playing, I don't know, a choose-your-own-adventure role-playing game where you just always end up at the same conclusion no matter how many different choices you make. So, when you look at Legoland as it's been created for Evan and his compatriots here, it's all predetermined. We don't know that initially. We don't see that right away, but we do have, for instance, the prophecy right at the beginning of the movie, and the prophecy tells us things that are going to happen, and no matter what, those are the things that are going to happen because it's a prophecy. That's the idea of the prophecy, that there's really no wiggle room here, that this is, it's a predetermined thing. This is, the special will find the peace, and it will save the world. And now, as far as that goes, we also have the pan out when we go from the Lego world into the real world that allows us to understand that these are all children's playthings. At one point, Evan builds like this giant hand, and they're like, oh, you've had a vision of the hand. So we're already getting some sort of deity figure in here that they understand has like a controlling element going on to it. And when we see the kid playing with the Lego, we know then that he's been controlling them the whole time, and he's been doing everything for them, and they can only do what he's said they're going to do. And indeed, at the end of the movie, when he's having a discussion with his father, he's feeding his Lego men the lines. Captain Business and Evan are having this final conversation. Or sorry, is his name Evan or Emmett? I don't remember. Construction worker Lego man, they're having this final conversation, and he's feeding them the lines, and they can only say those things because they're receiving them as dialogue, and their choices and their wills and their personalities as Lego men are all an illusion because they're things that have just been fed to them. So in that way, it's an extremely fatalistic text because it's essentially presenting you with a world that is someone else's plaything, and everyone's personality in it and everyone's will is determined by the story being told by this author higher power that is the child and his father, depending on who's controlling the Lego at the time. So the fact that it's a dual-authored story doesn't necessarily make it less fatalistic because the people it's being told about can't really do anything to control it. And it's also interesting that they posit the Lego people in our world. You know, they're in traffic, they go to work, they have, you know, top 20 tunes that they all listen to and they all like, and they pay too much for coffee. It's a critique of our world because we live in the same kind of world. Therefore, is our world fatalistic because we're a reflection of the Lego world. That this world is reflecting our world, and if we were perfect and we followed the instructions all the time and everything we built was according to the instructions, would it be a fatalistic society? Indeed, it seems to indicate when they go to Cloud Cuckoo Land and they have all the master builders there, and these are people that can sort of deviate from the instructions and have creativity and may determine their own fates, it's destroyed. And Cloud Cuckoo Land is up in the clouds, and there's like a pantheon of heroes, and all the most famous Lego characters and the most iconic Lego characters are all up there, as though they're like this group of gods to the Lego people, and they're destroyed utterly by order and by the instructions, and by outside forces that they can't control. And that's always what was meant to happen, because that was always their fate. So in that way, it's a very fatalistic text, and even as it were, the gods of this world can't protect them or prevent it until you have one that is so driven by the rules and so tied by his fate, because he's a person of prophecy, and he's just right on that straight and narrow, that he can't deviate, to the point that he said, let's follow the instructions, and when you go back to following the instructions and you stick on the plan, things go better for you, and that's how you triumph. Because if you stop fighting your fate and just accept it, you'll be ultimately happier and things will go smoother for you. Yeah, you didn't think about that, did you? Maybe you did. I don't know. Now I'm going to argue against myself and say it's an indeterminate text because I have no one else up here, so I have to make two sides of my own debate. Why would I say it's an indeterminate text? Indeterminism is essentially the opposite of fatalism, of course. It basically means that agency is abundant, we can choose our own path, no matter what we want to do, we can do it, and we can make it happen for ourselves. And it's one that I think most people are more comfortable with because it's sort of a happier place, that even if you have a creator being, you're still happier like thinking that you're able to choose for yourself and that you just don't have a predetermined path, because that's kind of a bummer. So if we look then at the moment that Evan, or Lego Man construction worker, who may be named Emmett also, but I think is Evan, I should look that up. But when we look at his life, as soon as he gets thrown out of the Lego world, as soon as he makes that choice to sacrifice himself, we can actually see that this is not just one of those scenarios where you have like imagination running wild for a kid and he's showing us a scenario, that this is sort of actually happening, kind of, because when he gets out and he's laying on the desktop, a little Lego construction man starts moving of his own free will. So the father and the son are having their own interactions, they're not paying attention to him, but he's still able to move, which Lego, like, my Legos can't do that, as far as I know. They're not moving in the boxes up there. But because he's able to do that, he's then showing that independent of these deity figures, these hands, these, you know, I'm so articulate. Independent of these figures, he's able to exert his own will and move in spite of the fact that he lived in this whole predetermined world and his lines were fed to him, and the fact also that the prophecy was deemed to be made up. So in that way, I think it's very, very key line to say that it's an indeterminate text, because when they're talking about the prophecy right at the end, he said it was made up, I made it up, it's not real. So therefore, things that determine our fate and tell us who we have to be and who we can be are actually artificial. And those constructs are an illusion, and we can follow them, and that's handy and it's easier, but if we try to be our own individuals, we will always be successful, because a Lego man who's an inanimate piece of plastic is able to move. Now, or, and this is what I think it is, it's showing us a fatalistic world inside of an indeterminate world, because we have the fatalistic world of the Lego men, and as soon as Evan re-enters that Lego man world, he is back to doing everything that the kids are playing with and that they're allowing him to do. And outside of that, we have the deterministic world where you can make choices. So they control what's going on in the Lego world, but they are able to make their own independent choices, and when Evan gets into that world and he's interacting with them, he's also able to make his own independent choices free of them. So we're shown both a fatalistic world in the Lego world and an indeterminate world in the real world. But that doesn't mean to say that we can't then extrapolate further and then maybe like our world is just a Lego world for something above us. And that's kind of a neat way to look at it, I guess. Because we've all had that vision, like, what if I'm just playing in a sand... What if the desert is just a sandbox for, like, an alien race? But, you know, it probably isn't. Unless you think of the pyramids, and then they were made by, like, aliens, according to conspiracy theorists. And so maybe they were just playing in their... I know, I've gone too far. I'm off track. Anyways... It's an interesting thought to see what they did with this movie to create this layered world. Quite frankly, I didn't need it. I would have been happy just in the Lego story, having happy fun times. But I think they were trying to, like, shoehorn in the message that Lego is for everyone, and families should play together, and imagination is important, especially when they had, you know, this idea of the master builders, that they were able to do anything and they could deviate from the instructions. And as soon as Evan had come out of the real world and back into Lego world, he had become a master builder, and he had learned to self-determine because he had been in the indeterminate world. So it's think about it. It's definitely not as heavy on the message, and certainly not as essential a message as we receive in movies like Frozen when they're trying to, like, teach morals to people. But it is an interesting setup for a film, and I think you should go see it, even if you're not going to, like, overthink it like I did, and you just go like, hey, it's a fun movie to watch, because it is a fun movie to watch, and it's got punchy jokes, and, you know, it's relaxing, and you don't have to think about the plot too much. Check it out. Let me know what you think. Is it a fatalistic world? Is it an indeterminate world? Is it a fatalistic world in an indeterminate world? Is it just a kid's movie, and I need to calm down about this? Let me know. I'll talk to you guys later. Bye.